stories, like I could see this be an interesting movie. I enjoy stories where it's people forming connections, and in this
Mhm.
story specifically, it was very.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello,
welcome back.
everyone. Welcome back. So this past month, we read, or mostly read, Harry's Trees by Jon Cohen. It's a very kind of lighter-hearted novel and not fantasy, which is a nice change. It kind of follows the story of two characters that end up merging. So there is Harry, who is a recent widower, and he blames himself and he runs away to the forest. He's a forest manager. And then there's this other woman, Amanda, who's also a widow, and her daughter, Oriana. And they are trying to recover from their losses, and they end up meeting. And it's kind of them overcoming their grief and connecting with each other, as well as kind of the community. And that would be, without giving away any spoilers, how I would summarize this book.
Yeah.
What were your kind of impressions, Jacqueline? What did you think about it?
So I have a lot of thoughts about this book, just on a personal level. So yeah, I guess normally we start off with what if we liked it and our rating. I would give it like a 3.75 maybe. That was like where I'm sitting at right now. But there are a lot of aspects about this book that really resonated with me. Um, Specifically, like the kind of magical realism was very new, kind of interesting. I really connected with Oriana because so this was a difficult novel for me to read because what happened to Dean and was pretty much what happened to my dad. So reading this was very like hard for me because I mean Oriana's young. She's how old? Like she's like 10.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I totally like had this connection with Oriana of what she's going through and like losing a father so suddenly. I could believe how her mom kind of describes it to her is what starts her magical thinking of, oh well, he turned into an angel, or he just, or turned into a hawk, because it is a
It's the
hard
wing
way.
being, yes.
Yeah, it's a hard way to wrap your head around how somebody can pass away. um and so, yeah, this the second that we got into that stuff, I was like, okay, this is going to be an interesting novel for me. So yeah, I think there's a quote where so Oriana, and it's kind of how I got into reading, is like books are very comforting, and it's an escape. It's you're reading other people's storylines, other people's
Mm-hmm.
lives. And so that's kind of where I have this connection with this book, is the summer my dad passed away is like when I hugely got into reading. And there's a quote that I'm trying to find here, in all my notes, that talks about, oh, it was the like when she starts going to the library, it just talks about how that summer she checked out 112 books or something, and that was me. Well, I wouldn't say 112, but I
A
just
lot of
started
books.
I just started going to libraries, and one book really caught my attention, read it, loved it, and then I just like from there, it's like this escape. I don't know, it's great. I love reading. But there's so many great quotes. You can tell that Jon Cohen is, I think I was reading his biography this morning. So many interesting things about him, what that I didn't realize. So I think when I was reading his biography, that he's the son of a librarian or somebody, yeah, son of a librarian and an English professor.
Okay.
But get this, he also co-wrote the film Minority Report.
I did remember looking that up, which is,
He's a screenwriter.
yeah.
That movie blew my mind when I was a kid. So that was an interesting piece I just read this morning. I was like, that doesn't connect at all for me for this book. Right?
No.
So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say, I guess, about how I connected with the book. What about you?
I would give it like maybe a 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed the book, but I never got really invested in it. And like,
Mhm.
there's a point towards the end where I'm like, the novel could end here and I'd be totally okay.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, there's still like 100 pages.
Yeah.
This is not the end. So that part, like the fact that I didn't ever get super invested, but like we were looking for something more lighthearted and fun that wasn't like doom and gloom, although you got really attached to it. For me, it just, I didn't have that connection. I did really connect though with character wise, Harry. Um, just a little bit like playing the blame game and over analyzing and thinking things, and just how much he loves the forest. Like there were so many quotes where I was like, oh yes, I totally understand like that feeling of deep breath when you walk in the forest, or like watching and hearing the crackle of the buds open. Like that will be happening not for a few months, but I'm looking forward to it. Um, and then even like, so he, spoiler alert, um, does get some money from his wife's death. So it was a wrongful suit. There was a lawsuit and everything. And he gives it out to strangers because he doesn't want that money. Um, and he does it by like picking random cities with Oriana and then just picking a tree that speaks to him in that community. And that's totally how, like, if I had a bunch of money and we're giving it away like that, that's how I would do it, which has a pretty tree that they care for, like a nice garden with native plants. Um, so I very much connected with Harry there.
I think we are similar. We both love the forest. We both love trees. He talks a lot about the different types of trees and all the
Oh, I
Latin names.
loved that. All the I was like, this is so happy. Like the other day, I was literally talking about how there's so many cool Latin names and you could name pets after your Latin names of like your favorite tree. Like very exciting for me.
Yeah, so I think it's those little pieces that kept me going for this novel. Probably similar to you, but I
Yeah,
can see what you're saying of not getting like completely invested. I think it is a very cutesy, kind of heartwarming,
it was
you
weird
know,
though, because like I was expecting that cutesy, heartwarming, but then at the beginning, for maybe like the first probably like almost 150 pages to 200, I was like, how is this going to be lighthearted? Like this is kind of heavy. Like his wife is dying and he is absolutely devastated, and he has this brother who isn't so great. I did not like reading from his brother's perspective because it just felt so wrong. And he is kind of like an antagonist, I guess.
well, his what's interesting is his name is the whole, aspect of fairy tales, and his name is Wolf, right?
Yeah.
And how Oriana, she wears the red jacket,
Yes.
like Little Red Riding Hood. So he kind of interweaves. And the thing with Little Red Riding Hood is she's seen as an independent and clever little girl. She goes off into the woods to
And she
visit
gets
her grandmother. So I kind of like where he interweaves the fairy tale aspect of that. And
she gets
yeah, Wolf
rescued
is,
by the forester or the logger, and that's kind of Harry.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Rescues her
yeah.
from her grief. Yep.
Yeah. So I can see what he was trying to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I see his vision of what he was trying to write. And yeah, this story, I enjoy stories. Like I could see this be an interesting movie. I enjoy stories where it's people forming connections, and in this
Mm-hmm.
story specifically, it was very, two families, or Oriana and Amanda and Harry, kind of traveling a similar road, and they're both grieving,
Mm-hmm.
and then they help each other, find their way a little bit. I kind of like stories like that. It reminds me of stories that in movies we used to watch as kids, or
Yeah, where it's
like,
like
yeah,
everyone kind of comes out on top. Like even like yes, Wolf, I was uncomfortable reading him because he was very money oriented and felt very entitled.
yeah,
But at the end, he still kind of has a little bit of a happy ending in that he knows that Harry still cares for him, and he gets a dog.
Aw.
Did you read up to the part where like when Harry drops off one of the packs of gold that there's this dog that attacks him?
No, I didn't get to that part.
Okay, there's
Poor
this dog
baby.
that attacks him, and then later on Wolf goes and sees the dog, and like the dog is like very aggressive, and it's a guard dog, and they actually took out his vocal cords, the owner, so that he couldn't bark, so he could sneak up on people. Super sad, right?
So does Wolf kind of go through a little bit of a redemption? Like,
A
does he?
little bit, in so much that he's like, I will rescue this dog, and like really identifies with them and is like, I'm so sorry they took your voice. I'll be the voice for you. Um, and then even just so at the right at the end of the novel, we have this character Stu, who I also do not like, who's a real estate agent. Just very greedy and a little bit slimy. Thankfully, Amanda ends up punching him in the face, which was good. Go, Amanda. Apparently, she's got a hard punch and a hard hit. Um, and so he ends up finding the gold and trying to steal where they've hidden it in the cave. And then he like goes to go back, but Wolf finds him because Wolf was kind of snooping and trying to figure out where Harry was. And then like he Wolf protects Harry and being like, no, like you can't do that. And also goes to like punch him because Stu punched Harry. Um, Stu did not really have any redemption other than that he happened to have a couple pieces of gold that he still had, so that he got his money. There was zero redemption for him though.
Mm. Well, yeah, I guess those characters are supposed to kind of balance out Harry, right? Who it's like the
Yeah.
concept of, money and greed, and Harry doesn't he lost what was most important to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the money doesn't, like,
It doesn't
even though
matter.
most people would be elated that they would get $4 million, the way that he got it, he
It
doesn't
feels
want
really
it.
like a curse to him. He
It's a
views it
curse, yeah. Sorry.
which kind of makes sense. I liked like you had like this kind of parallel
There's
story
slimy,
within it
greedy
where it
characters.
was about like the grum and written on a ledger, and he has to give away his gold.
What was interesting about the Grum's ledger was, why does it I can see why Harry connects with it because he has, the monetary, he's got the money, but why was Oriana so
I don't know, but
what was
like
Ariana's connection with that story? Because it was the Grum's ledger was literally, it was like this
I
thing
think
that he was I
yeah.
have to Google what a
And
ledger
so
was.
like
It was like a financial accounts, and then he just gets rid of all the money. So why was Oriana very fixated? Maybe it was just because it was a
I think it was maybe like one
fairy
of those
tale.
timing things where it's like, oh, here's a good fairy tale. Oh, here's a man. And she's finding out like, oh, he's death. Oh, he's getting money. And like more just like how you read a book and get really into it. I think that's kind of what happened to her. But at the same time, maybe the story was more and we just didn't like we kind of read it, but like didn't get it because like Ronnie got really attached to it too when he read it and like wanted to do all this good and like um so it was not just her that got attached to the story.
I think do the other characters, like Ronnie you mentioned, they also talk about he kind of interweaves their childhood fairy tales and stuff that they like. I think for Ronnie it was Treasure Island or something.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I was thinking, like, what do you have any like fairy tales that you really liked as a kid, or something that like sticks out? Like, what's your
I don't
favorite fairy tale?
I don't know. Oh, what was it? Okay, there was one, I don't remember what it's called, and I don't remember a piece of it, but like trying to think of book fairy tales. Um, that was like about oh, what is it called? It's like there's this lily, and like it's to save the princess. And then like the brothers get something different, and then it's the youngest brother that's like forgotten that finds the lily to save the princess.
Oh yeah,
The healing lily. Oh, I don't remember what it's called. It's in those big fairy tale novels.
is it like folk? It's like a
A
is it
folk tale, yeah.
it's a folk tale? Okay, folk tale.
Quite a fantasy. Oh, and then there
Hmm.
was one. I
The
can
the
figure it out.
Princess Lily.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Okay.
Something generic like that. I also what was the other one? I don't know. I kind of
I can't think.
wasn't. I didn't I skipped the whole fairy tales. Like I didn't learn to read until it was a little late.
Oh yeah, so
Um, and then like, oh, I can read and there's like a magical world I can escape to. So then like I jumped. Like I didn't know how to read at the end of grade 1. By the end of grade 2, I was reading at like a grade 8 level. There were
so you really just
it was like, this is so cool. Like I don't have to be in just my head imagining things. Yeah, grade 2 was when I fell in love with books, and that's all I did. So I skipped the fairy tales. I did like kind of a fairy tale, I guess. The Secret Garden.
see, I've heard of that. I've never, is it a book or
It's a book that's
yeah?
I think was turned into a movie, or maybe the other way around. I loved both the movie and the book.
I have heard of it. I haven't seen it or read it. I feel like I also am trying to think of fairy tales.
I have the DVD. You should watch it. You will
Yeah,
cry.
okay. I love crying at movies, so okay, maybe I'll give it a
Oh,
watch.
and what's that other one? Also has to do with the princess in the attic or something. So
Oh, I've never heard
sad.
that one either.
So
What is it called?
sad,
There's
but so
one
good. As a child, it was very moving to me, and I think that was like the first time that I fully cried
it's
about
called
like a fictional
Princess in the
character.
Attic?
I think so.
Princess in
It,
the Attic.
I have the film for that one. It's a double feature with The Secret Garden.
I just okay, now that thinking of princesses, I all I can think of is this, is it the Swan Princess?
Yes,
Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Where she turns into a swan. I miss that era of movies and animation. It was so good. Um,
Speaking of fairy tales, did you have a favorite like Disney fairy tale?
hmm. Yeah, I guess it like well, Disney fairy tale. I never really connected with Cinderella. I feel like Cinderella was so overdone.
Yeah,
Um, I really liked fairy tale. I don't know. I didn't also didn't like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White.
right?
Like none of those
It's like
really.
Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid were kind of the two that I was
Yeah,
like,
Beauty and the Beast definitely,
yep.
because
She
that's
has
like
that big library. That's all I want.
well, also, yeah, it's like two people forming a connection and she's kind of helping him through and
There's more of a character
yeah,
than
yeah.
say Sleeping Beauty. There's not a character there. It's something is happening to them that you're observing.
I liked The Princess and the Frog. I think that's what it's called.
Oh
It
yeah,
was, it was a newer Disney movie, but I
I
love how
enjoyed that.
she is trying to like follow her dreams
Love
and
just happens on the side. It's not the goal.
exactly. She's like trying to open her restaurant, and it's because it's like her dad inspired her and all that. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. You go, girl.
Hmm.
But then she turns into a frog and
Yeah.
realizes that it's not everything. Like you're grinding and trying to get your restaurant is not like everything about life.
Yeah.
You
I
also need
thought
like
what was
friends and love.
interesting, you just mentioned like she wants to do it for her dad, that Harry's kind of whole relationship started with the tree because it was his connection to his dad, because his dad like abandoned him when he was a child and had carved his, we think for most of the story, had carved his initials in the tree.
Yes.
And then we find out that it was actually Wolf who carved the initials to like sabotage the tree. And I was waiting for that to like come up and be like a bigger deal. And it just didn't come up at all, which I thought was kind of interesting that like,
Yeah, it's basically there to inspire Harry a little bit, being like that was
yeah.
like what his dad left behind in one of his favorite things.
But like, what was the point of letting us know that it was actually Wolf who had carved it as a way to like get back at Harry because Harry had gotten like the treat from the store with his dad? Other than like showcasing how Wolf really had this like attachment issues.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was interesting.
It's almost, and at the beginning of the book, the aspect of like Harry hating his job and being in a job where he's not really like connecting with the forest and a tree in a way that in the trees in the way that he wants, and talking about like Wolf and their attachment issues and how their father left them, and Harry looking for a very he needing stability in his job, needing, like, I think they talk about how he's pretty much always at the office.
Yeah.
Um,
Even just
well,
how
especially
secure he wants to be, like, he won't leave the job unless he's won the lottery, like, he won't take that chance.
and yeah. Wait, he does so he doesn't actually win the lottery, but the money is actually from
The lawsuit.
a lawsuit. But basically what I was trying to get at is him being, um, in the office all the time after Beth's death is always like it's like a source of when you go through trauma, sometimes throwing yourself into work is a response that a lot of people like.
They need the distraction or they
Yeah,
wanna punish themselves. Depends their
yeah.
motivation.
So I saw when I was reading that, I was like, "Oh, he's majorly going through trauma." Did the way that Beth died and the whole she died on the same day as Dean, did that kinda, like, take you out of the story a little bit, the way she died? Like, "Oh, that was such a freak accident," or did you see it as if it was a little bit more of a mundane way of going or a more common way, like and then
I
when I read that,
think
I was like, "Oh, what? A building just what?"
it was kind of like, I think in a mundane if it was more mundane, it would have been harder to see the perspective of Harry and just, like, how devastated he was. Because like, if it was something from, like, cancer, like, you would see that coming, and I feel like he would have dealt with it. I think by having it such a freak accident really tied it in so that he felt like it was his fault, like, the fact that she wouldn't have
Yeah,
been there if he had, like, walked on like she had suggested.
yeah,
Um, so I think it had to be an accident for that kind of mysterious and uncertainty that he could then blame himself
yeah.
for.
Okay, I got you.
It's
I just
harder
when
to
I
explain
first
away.
read that, I was like, "Whoa,
It
what is
did weird me
happening?"
out that it was the same day that Dean died, and other than having that connection for Ariana, I didn't really like that. Like, that was, like, too coincidental.
Yeah, it's a little bit too coincidental, but maybe there are things that happen in life that are extremely coincidental, but it's just interesting, like, how in this big forest when
It
he
did lead to, like, the fantasy element of the
yeah,
book, like, the magical, like, "Oh, it had to be something."
yeah, yeah. I'm just, looking at my notes here. Um, oh, speaking of other, like, movies and books and things this reminds me of, I kinda just thought of Bridge to Terabithia.
Yeah, it's very much that vibe, but it's flipped around. You have the bad at the beginning and good at
Yeah,
the end.
it is.
Um, but
But
yeah,
the element of I feel like forests are such a, source of inspiration for so many folk tales and fairy
mhm.
tales, and even for kids, it's so important for kids to be able to have forests to go out and just be alone in, play in. I mean, Oriana has a souped up treehouse.
Yeah, I want
Like,
that tree.
hello,
Can
I
I
want
live
that.
in that tree house?
Yeah. That was also another connection point for me in this book is, when I was a kid, my best friend had a treehouse in her backyard, and we would set it up to have sleepovers in. So I really miss that, and I was thinking back to her and how fun that was.
We tried to build a tree house in the ravine behind my house with the neighbors, and, like, we had, like, 30 neighborhood kids really working on this, figuring it out, and then neighbors across from the ravine complained because we were, like, too noisy trying to build it, and we had to tear it down. And
Oh,
I was that was, like, one of the saddest moments as a child because we had worked on it for, like, over a month and, like,
yeah. You're like
there was
little
nails
engineers
and,
learning
like
how to construct.
yeah, um, yeah, tree houses, very important part of childhoods, and it makes me sad that not every kid gets to experience that anymore.
Yeah. I was well, yeah, I'm actually doing, some research right now in, like, access for public parks and, like, the provincial parks and conservation areas, and doing research on visitorship and, Yeah, it's I don't have a car, and so I can really only go to my local parks. It's very difficult for me to get out to these. We have so many beautiful, beautiful forested areas here, and yeah, so that's like an interest of mine is it's more because I would consider this where we live more more urbanized, or it's like more city like than where I grew up. I feel like I
Yeah.
had more access to forest when I was younger. So yeah, access to, for forests.
And it's not even equal depend like where you live, what community you're in. There's racial divides and who has access,
Yes.
which is not fair. Like everyone needs to go hang out in the forest. It's
Ex-
so good for you.
I think
So so good.
especially 2020 has shown us how important being able to get outside and have space to roam around,
Mm-hmm.
especially yeah, or even just what I missed, especially because parks are becoming more popular now in our
Which is
area,
good.
which is great. I love that, but also you need
The solitude.
sometimes the solitude of the forest, right? Think
Mm-hmm.
which if we protect more forest and more acreage of forest, then hopefully you
Mm-hmm.
can go out into a forest and not see a single soul.
It's so like Harry going up and just like thinking to himself in that solitude and like he climbs all these different trees. That's all I did as a kid. Like in that ravine behind my house, I would just climb. We have this big willow tree over the water. That was my favorite one.
Cool.
That's why my fairy name at work is Willow.
Oh, I love that.
um, but there's this big willow tree, and that's where I would like do all my thinking as a child. I would just climb up, and I'd spend like an hour just sitting there looking at the like light coming through the tree, and the creek was bubbling underneath, and like,
Yeah. I wonder how many kids, I mean, there may be kids who are more inclined to do that, but we didn't have, I mean, we had computers, but we weren't in the era of iPhones and iPads. And I especially look at people like my niece. One of my nieces is very, very hyperactive, loves to be engaged in doing things all the time, loves her iPad, like great. But sometimes boredom and just wanting to get out into the woods by yourself, having that space to just think, just to sit with your own
um,
thoughts as a kid is really, really important.
there's so many studies that show like it helps with their self-regulating and like their emotional growth too, and like we know it lowers heart rates and reduces stress and like honestly, everyone like I love doing sit spots with kids. It's so funny because you're like
What's that? Sit spots?
sit spots, magic spots, whatever you want to call it. Depends where I am and what day. But you basically go out in the forest and you're like, we are just gonna sit in the forest. You find your own spot. You can move around, but you're like in that one spot, and you're gonna
I
spend
love
five
that.
minutes there. You're not gonna talk to anyone. And like at first, the first minute or two, like the kids are really struggling. Even adults do. I did it to adults not too long ago, and they're like, really? And I was like, no, you're just gonna sit there and like I'll try and play them to their senses where I'm like, okay, I want you to think of some things you're listening. What do you smell? Feel the ground, feel the bark if you're sitting against a tree.
Kind of like a guided meditation in a way.
Kind
So
of. It's
focus
basically
on your
that.
breathing and
But like, no, you're just gonna sit there for like 5 minutes, and they're like, okay, that's only 5 minutes. Then they sit there, and it's like, okay, it's 2 minutes, and they're struggling because they're like, normally they have to go do something, and like they're used to the constant simulation. But then as soon as it's like 5 minutes, and you're like, time to go, and they're like, no, I don't want
aw.
to. Like I've never met a person who was happy that the sit spot or magic spot is over. I call it sit spots with adults, generally magic spots with kids. Like they're like, I want to do more. I'm not done. I'm like,
Well, you can, yeah,
you
you
can do
can
it
do
on your
that. You
own.
can come to the
5 minutes.
forest.
It's a struggle to get started, but then once you're doing it, like it's so worth it. And like
Yeah,
climbing the tree makes it that much better. I
I
think.
I really love that. That's so cute that you do that. It's funny that you do it with the adults too. And
They think I'm crazy. They think I'm crazy at first, and it's so funny. And then after they're like, "Oh, that was so nice and what I needed," and I was like, "Mm-hmm, I know."
aw. Yeah, we can get caught up in the constant like we are not our to-do lists, and sometimes it can be I feel every day I wake up and it's like, okay, I have a million things I need to do. And that's why like even meditation,
Hmm.
it is so hard to just sit there and just focus on just your breathing. I have this
Yeah.
book actually that I have. It's like forest bathing.
Yeah.
So I've been working my way through this slowly. But she dives into all the health benefits of
Many.
just going into a forest and
Well,
experience like breathing fresh
doctors in
air.
Canada can now prescribe nature as a
They,
treatment.
they can. I love that.
Yeah. Um,
They should.
2 weeks ago that it was like now a thing that they started doing it in Vancouver. Like they can actually do that. And I'm like, this is so good.
That's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna look that up. That's yeah, because studies, like you were saying, show. I think there's even certain trees, the like evergreen trees. I think
Mhm.
like for no, I don't know the names right
Cedar's
now.
a common one.
Yeah, cedar. The compounds, the smell,
Yep.
they've
So good.
said that it can reduce like stress. I feel like
Reduce
that's what
blood
we all need. So,
cortisol, all those
oh,
things.
cortisol is a huge thing.
Yep. So maybe that is how Harry got over it. He connected with other people and actually got to enjoy the forest. That's kind of, I don't really have many thoughts about this book. It was like a lighthearted read. It was nice. And it was fun that it had those kind of magical elements.
Hmm.
But I don't think it's going to be a book that necessarily really sticks with me, or cause any profound change, other than if I'm sad, I might pick up this book and be like, oh, need a nice light read.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely yeah. It is the book is what it is. It was nice to read. Nice to connect with a certain like I see what his vision was. Oh, I thought maybe I would read also. He commented on one of our posts.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I posted a quote. This quote was pretty much in one of the first, or I think it was like the third chapter or something. So the quote I posted was, he could see it, planting and tending real trees instead of moving them around on a computer screen. Working outdoors, the rich scent of soil and leaves, tired at the end of the day instead of drained. I liked that quote because I often think about that. There's a difference between drained and tired. Like if like yesterday I was out in the forest for hours in a new place I've never been, and it was so fun. I love going to new places and it's so much fresh air, and you come home and you're just it's the good kind of tired, you know? But
Yeah.
and there's a difference between being drained. So I posted that quote
Yeah.
and he commented saying, so here's something cool you and I share. Your first important book was Flipped, and you mentioned how Julie's love for the big sycamore at the heart of the book resonated with you. Well, of course, Harry's Trees is full of trees, but an actual tree inspired me as I wrote the novel, the big old sycamore standing in my front yard. It's the grandest tree in my town. My office is on the third floor of my old Victorian house, and the branches and leaves of the sycamore are right outside the window. Essentially, like Harry, I lived in a tree house. At least it feels that way. And that's important because a writer needs to have the mind of a child, because children are alive to the imaginative possibilities of the world. Best wishes.
And he
Jon
captures
Cohen.
that so well in Oriana. That
Yeah,
magical childhood. It's amazing. And for
I
anyone
thought
who
that was
doesn't know, the sycamore looks like a sick tree where the bark is like peeling and flaking off. Also called a boneman tree sometimes because it looks kind of like the white of bones in winter. Very
I
important for bats and leaf cutters.
bats and leaf cutter. Leaf cutters are ants, right?
Kind of. They're an insect, not necessarily ants. Although there is a leaf cutter ant,
Okay.
just to confuse you.
There are so many sycamore trees where I work, and you also
Yeah.
work. But I got to walk around, and there's a ton of sycamore trees on one of the spots that I work at. And they have like these little dangling things that look like Christmas tree ornaments.
Oh yeah, I have a picture of them. they're like little kind of spiky balls, but they're not like the heart I guess, more bumpy than spiky. They're very fun.
And you said the bark looks sickly, but I think it looks so cool. It's like almost a
Oh,
gray color.
it's super cool. And yeah, it's like that grayish, whitish tone. But
Very unique.
if you don't know that that's how the tree grows, it's because the outer layer doesn't grow, which is why it flakes off in layers. I can see why people would think it's sick.
It's a good, yeah, way to describe it, but it's the gray color that looks so cool to me. I just thought it was really nice of him
Yeah.
to respond to our post.
Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that. That's what they look like.
Yeah, they're like so are they the seeds or what are?
Yeah, it's the fruit and the seeds are inside. It also looks kind of like quite a few fruit trees actually have kind of fruits like that.
Okay, maybe
I think
I'll
it's cool that it's always seems to be like the three in a. I don't know why that is, the three in a row. In most of the ones that I find, at least.
I'll have to take a closer look. I usually just they're kind of far away from where
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so he must have he must have watched my introduction video. So the videos that I think you posted a post.
Yeah.
I posted a video introducing ourselves on our page, which is really nice of him. He had to scroll all the way to the bottom so he
Yeah.
could look on our page, which was very fun. That's kind of why I really like doing books that don't get as much. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this book online. Like there are
No.
some books that get so much attention. So us picking a book that is already very popular is beneficial for people reading along with us, but also if there's already so many like discussions or reviews online, it's nice to add something to the community where if
Yeah.
yeah.
If it's a very popular book, it could have already, like, our thoughts could already be out there.
Yeah.
I don't know how many brand new novel thoughts we're having. But if it's a book that, like, maybe someone hasn't talked about, it'll give other people an idea.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have the
Well, that's
most
why
revolutionary thoughts about
when we
books.
started this, we were trying to pick a lot of authors that were like minorities or from a lot of them were female at the beginning.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. I think this is our first male author.
I think so. Which is really exciting that he actually still took the time to like comment for us. Because yeah, it was the first male author that we read. I think
Well, we
next
want to
month.
include everybody.
Yeah.
And I think this book and the book we are picking next month. So the book we're picking next month is a male author as well.
Yeah, it's called The Road.
The Road.
Which is funny because we found it like we wanted more lighthearted stuff and we found it on like a list with lighthearted stuff. And then everyone that I've talked to and done more research now that we've picked it is like, good luck. Like it's going to be a rough read in that it's very emotional and like taxing.
Oh gosh.
But
Are you ready?
Spring. So there's sunshine now. So maybe if I read the book in the sunshine, I'll be better.
Yeah, we needed this for the depths of winter and now there's more sunshine. There's a movie adaptation apparently to this. So I was peeking at the trailer and reading some reviews online and a lot of people are like, ooh, okay, good luck.
Yeah, like everyone I know seems to really enjoy that book and they're like, it's so good, but so sad. And I'm like, oh no.
Well, we haven't really done anything like this, a post-apocalyptic.
I don't think we've done many like very emotional books. Like the only one that I think was somewhat like more emotional was The City of Girls.
Yes.
Where there is like where the other books are so much fantasy and plot driven and action, which is what I do really enjoy. Yeah. So it'll be like a nice change. This was like a good lead into the emotional, like, okay,
yeah,
I can connect with it, but like for me, it wasn't like devastating. It was kind of sad at the beginning.
I do like that we are trying different things. Probably like if would I pick up The Road on my own? Probably not. So I am excited to read stuff that I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
Because
I think
it's
you
nice. Found The Road. You suggested The Road. So
yeah, because it was on one of those lists.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, on the happy, like, uplifting list? Did somebody just put it there as a joke?
I guess so. I was like, I don't know.
Must
And like you read the basic because like when we picked it, I didn't want to read too much of it and like know what was happening. The description, the basic like outline sounds reasonable. Like, oh, he's going find his father, road trip.
I do really like post-apocalyptic stuff, though. I watch a lot of, gameplays for, like, The Last of Us or, like, video games, but they're they're
Yeah.
apocalyptic. I loved The Walking Dead. That's zombies, but it's still the same premise where, like, civilization has collapsed,
Mm-hmm.
humans are forming, different groups, and you kinda have to, like, fight to survive and all of that. I
A little
kinda
bit of that was in the 5th season there.
A little bit in the 5th season, but yeah, it's more
Be
there's
nice to get like a full taste of it.
yeah. I think well, it was in the 5th season, but the 5th season is very otherworldly, not
Yeah, it's still
even
that big
remotely
fantasy element.
recognizable to ours, so this is like America has crumbled,
Yeah.
which
I don't know what happened.
possibility, but I don't know. Who
Um,
knows?
yeah.
I'm excited.
So we'll be reading that book next month. If anyone has suggestions for months after that, let us know. We're open to
Yeah,
anything.
we gotta pick I like picking the 2 at a time.
Hmm.
'Cause it gave, we were able to kind of promote the road a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
So maybe we could yeah, if you have any suggestions for April and May.
Yeah, let us know. We are open to pretty much anything. As we've just mentioned, we like to try new things. And what do you think we should read? Let us know.
Cool. Yeah, I think, do we wanna sign off now?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for
Happy
watching.
happy reading.
Happy
See you
reading.
next month.
Bye.
Bye.